All right, so let's see if anyone's here, just warming up. Morning, everyone. We're just starting up a little couple of minutes early to test everything out, and then we'll get going. Yeah, there's Kat. Morning, Kat. Is everything good today? We'll give everyone a couple of minutes to get in, and hopefully I've solved all the technical issues I had last week, so shouldn't be any problems. If you give me a thumbs up, Kat, that everything's working and you can hear me, that would be really good. Hi, Eric. Excellent. Looks like we're all working. So we've got about a minute before we start, but I'll just recap what's been going on this week. So the World Archery Beat the Outbreak League has been pretty interesting. They posted a tic-tac-toe target this week, which was pretty devilish for bare bow and recurve shooters. It was a 5 target of 9 squares. Scoring was a bit ambiguous. It was kind of left to your own devices. All the compound archers were shooting maximum scores, of course, which is the first time they've done it. So maybe next week's target will be a little bit more level. So hope everyone's well. We've ticked off another week, and it's been an interesting week because it's been raining so much. I'm not sure we'd have been able to shoot outside the range anyway. So this is a good little segue. So it's 10:30. We'll kick off. My name's Coach Dale. I'm a level 4 NTS instructor as of last November, where I spent an amazing week at the Olympic Training Centre with Coach Lee. And since we're in these unusual lockdown times, the CTA thought it would be nice to provide some content to our members and hopefully keep people motivated, hopefully inspired, and also give some tools and techniques on how you can keep your archery going if you can't get to the range. And that's going to be the subject of today. Now, this is going to be slightly different because there's a context to this. There's loads of materials out there that allow you to learn how to train if you can't get to the range. Maybe your schedule just isn't allowing, or maybe you're traveling, or maybe you're coming back from injury, or maybe the weather's bad. But typically when you're going through those types of tools and training, there's an end in sight, and you're probably in the middle of an indoor season or an outdoor season, but you can see where the end is. Now, where we are right now, we're not sure where the end is, and we're not sure when the next time you can get to the range is. And so before I go into all the techniques and tools that you can use at home, I want to set some context. So the first thing to really be aware of is there's a difference between practicing and training. And that applies to any skill you're trying to learn. So practicing is kind of like the repetition of an existing skill that you're trying to really ingrain into your toolbox. Now, if you're a musician, it's going through scales or going through a piece of music. If it's a golfer, it's going through your swing or your putts. And in archery, you can practice too, and that's totally fine. You may be repeating your load to anchor over and over and over and over. Training, on the other hand, is setting you up so that you can deal with a certain situation. Now, that could be you're training to go and do a field shoot where you need to shoot 120 arrows in 4 hours and walk 3 miles at different angles. Or it could be training for a target archery event where you're shooting 60 or 70 meters. It could be training for a long indoor season. The point is, you know what you're training for, and so you can set goals accordingly. You typically know when the event you're training for is going to be, and you can create a training plan that works back, and then you're going to split that into little macro cycles and micro cycles so you can measure your progress. right now, what does that look like? So goals is the context I wanted to talk about. Having a goal keeps you motivated, or helps you keep you motivated. It helps you focus on something that's going to be beneficial for you at some point in the future. So I would really encourage everybody, and I'll challenge everybody now. Are you practicing at the moment, or are you training? And if you're training, do you have a goal? So if you have a goal, put it in the comment field, and let's see what everyone's got. Good examples of goals while we are in this kind of lockdown state would be maybe once and for all improving your clicker control, or improving your mental game from last week we talked about, or figuring out what that hook's supposed to be like shot to shot to shot, or your follow through, or your wrist sit, depending on what type of shot you're shooting. If you can get a goal, then you can create a training plan. And now is a great time to create a training plan that's going to help you get to your goal, and it's going to keep you honest. It's a lot easier if you know you've got to be at the gym at 8 o'clock in the morning to meet someone than it is to say, I'm just going to go to the gym. If you have a training plan that is moving you towards a goal, you're more likely to stick to it and be inspired and also see progress. And so when you have a training plan and a goal, I think it's really important to be able to measure it. So, for instance, here's something that I like to do with people I coach. It's a self-evaluation performance goal, and it's in the form of a radar chart. I'm going to hold this up to the camera. But it gives you a lot of questions about where your form is, where your experience level is, where your comfort level is. And at any given point in time, you grade yourself on these aspects from 1 to 10. And then you can draw a radar chart. And if you can see that, it kind of comes out like this. Now you can see areas where you need to improve. And that's where 0 is nearer to the middle and 10 is further to the outside. So if you can find ways of measuring your goals, that's also going to help keep you motivated. So a couple of examples of goals. Maybe in this lockdown period, you also want to increase your bow weight. Maybe you want to increase your endurance. Maybe you want to increase the percentage of time you run your mental game correctly. And you can rate yourself on those after every training session. So a goal might be by the end of April, by 31st of April, I want to have increased my bow weight by a pound and be able to shoot 80 shots within an hour and a half session. That's all manageable, and you can plan to that. So based on what you're training for and what your goals are, all the equipment I'm going to show you now could be used in different ways. So that was the context for what I'm going to go through. So the first training tool, it's already built. You haven't got to buy anything. It's up here. It's your mind. You can do visualization training. You can sit down in a nice, calm place, and you can work through your shot cycle when it's going really well. You're just nailing it. You're executing your shot perfectly. But you also want to make sure you're visualizing when it's challenging, when it's windy, when it's rainy, when it's muddy, when it's hot, when it's cold, when you've just had an equipment failure. What are you going to do if your rest falls off or breaks? Imagine yourself going through these scenarios. And when and if that happens, you're going to be more prepared for it. So what would happen if you were on the line at a USA Archery event and your rest fell off or your plunger fell off? What would you do? Well, if you imagine going through, putting your hand up, walking off the line, equipment failure, going back into your kit bag, where's my spare rest? You may not have one. Okay, so there's a note, buy a rest. And if you've got one, okay, take it out. Where are my tools to clean it, fix it back on? How am I going to deal with the adrenaline rush of going on? How am I going to calm myself down to get back on the line and shoot my next arrows? You've got no practice in USA Archery, whereas with NFAA, you'd have some practice. So you can run through scenarios and visualization as often as you want, and you can come up with any scenario. So this is probably the greatest amount of flexibility you've got is in your mind. Now the next level, if you're talking about shot mechanics, is going to be mimetics, miming the shot, going through in front of a mirror or a video and miming what your shot feels like. Miming is actually really difficult because you don't have any tension to help get biofeedback when you're in the positions. So you can do this in front of a mirror, and I'll go through the various video delays as well. But it's a great training. And if you can go through 50 or 60 reps of your mimetics, of your shot cycle, you can really start getting that skill ingrained in your system. The next level up from that will be stretch bands. Now there's loads of different types of stretch bands. There's one I've got here which is particularly tricky. This is like a 20-25 stretch band that starts stacking immediately. So this is going to be good if you want to do SPTs, which we'll come on to, or endurance type goals. This one, or it's good for warm-up, but specifically for training at home, this one is pretty stiff. So very short, pretty stiff. You can get that at Lancaster. The next one is a regular old medical tube. All right, just tied. It's important to tie this so it matches your brace height. This is a common mistake people will make. They'll just tie it together, and it's either going to be 3 inches more than your brace height or 2 inches too low. The reason why this is important is when you come to set position, you're at your brace height. The way your body is set up for the shot wants to be ingrained. It's very important. If that brace height is wrong, you're going to be in the wrong position. If you're too far back, by the time you get to setup position, your hook hand may be just way too far back, just because of the nature of the resistance band. So keeping this brace height, super important. That's a good tip. The other thing I like to do when I'm training with stretch band, and this would be for technical shot process type work, is to add a grip. So this is a spare grip I've got from a bow. Now, the problem with stretch bands is you've got no grip, tactile feedback. You know, the band just sits here on your pressure point. But with a grip, you can feel the pressure point and you can make sure that you're setting your grip in correctly. And you can do that on every shot repetition. So if you're working on technical goals, and grip was something I worked on myself during last indoor season, so I was getting a little bit sloppy with my thumbprint, not focusing to the target. If you can set your grip up with your stretch band, you can now practice that. You can even add your finger sling so you can really feel the grip come flying out of the target. So this has been really beneficial. Again, this is more for a shot technique, chunking down skills and really getting more of a tactile feel for what you're doing when you're practicing with stretch bands. So we'll put that down there. Then we have the Carousel band. Now this is the Carousel Elite Shot Trainer. This is your regular stretch band, but it has a string inside the band that you can adjust to where it stops moving when you're at your loading position, when you're at your full draw. Now, this stretch band, you can't set to the brace height. It is what it is. So you have to know that and be aware of it, so that when you're at setup, if you're about a 9-inch brace height, you're going to have slack. Otherwise, you're going to be pulling it in, and then you may end up too far. Instead of there, you could end up back there. But there's a hard stop. And once you get that hard stop at load, you can really transfer and expand against it. It's not moving. So you turn the stretch band into an isometric strength tool. So this is a pretty good one. It's kind of expensive, but it lasts. You've also got a wrist attachment, so that when you go through your shot cycle and you wrist sit, you're not going to lose your stretch band or hit anyone in the eye. So that's quite a good training device. The next one, you've got these simple Thera-Bands, very cheap. These might be good for your warm-up, but you can also use them just as effectively for your shot cycle. And you can get these in different grades of weight. So this is very, very light, but if I mix the yellow one and the green one with it, it becomes really stiff. So that may be a way of increasing the workload as you're warming up, or just increasing your workload as we go through SPTs if you can't get to a bow. The next we've got is either a luggage strap, or this is something I bought from REI used in rock climbing. This ain't going to move. This is going to take hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds of weight. So again, isometric. You can wrap this around your thumb, make it the length you want, so it's just short of your loading position. And once you come here, use your body and your back to really pull against it. Really brace yourself, expand, 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 hold, and then relax. And then you can do reps like that where you maybe hold for 10 seconds, relax for 15, hold for 10 seconds, relax for 15, while you're recording it so you know how many reps you're doing, so that maybe your goal is at the end of 3 weeks, I can do 60 reps of this for an hour, or 60 reps of this in an hour. And you can see your progress being tracked. So luggage strap or just an immovable band is good. For compound shooters, you have the classic string bow, but this is also good for recurve or any style of shooting, because cross-training on compound can be really beneficial for learning your expansion. So this is a hinge release, and if I don't expand in the correct way, it's not going to go off because it's on a camber. So again, that string bow, you can even make this in place of the luggage strap. Get a piece of string, it's pretty strong, tie it to your point of loading, your draw length, and then you can use that as isometric, or you can also put it in conjunction with your stretch band. You hold the two together. So if you don't want to buy the Carousel Elite stretch band, then you can add a string to your stretch band, and then you get the same kind of stop, and then you can practice your expansion against something that's just not going to move. So that's good. Now, the way I would use these, if I was working on a technical goal, I would be standing in front of a mirror or video delay, and I would have a specific goal in mind, like for the next 60 shots, I'm going to work on set to setup. So that's like, it's called chunking down. I'm just going to go set up, then I'm going to check myself. Start again from scratch, set up. Or I might be going set up to load, and you're just observing yourself in the mirror. So you're really chunking down a skill. If I was going to be working on endurance, we're going to go to the SPTs, but stretch bands can be used for that as well. Right, so moving away from stretch bands, of which there's loads of different types, we now have the AccuBow. So this costs about $149. I got it myself. I use it every now and again. I think I could use it a bit more effectively, but it's fun to pick up every now and again. It has a laser on the end, and that will show you how much float you've got going on. There is an attachment where you can put an iPhone, and it gives you a target. It gives you like a 3D target. It turns it into a game. There's an attachment for compounds, or if you're a recurve or barebow archer, you can use this. Just want to make sure that you hook underneath this stop and you grip where you're supposed to. Otherwise, it gets really out of balance. But again, you can use this for form work. It makes an almighty bang if you release, but it's also got an adjustable tension on it. So you could use this to help you increase your bow weight at your own pace, rather than cranking up your limbs and changing the tune of your bow and all that stuff. You could potentially just keep cranking this up to maybe where it's higher than your bow tension, and then you do some SPTs on this, which will help you then when you go to your main bow, the main bow won't feel quite as heavy. You can also put stabilizer on this as well to get some mass on it. So it has its place. It's got some uses. And again, you can do that in front of a mirror. Once you've been through that, you've also got, if you have the luxury, you have the light bow. So this is my light bow rig that I use. It's exactly the same dimensions as my competition bow. Now it's a 70-inch bow with long limbs and 25-inch riser, sight stabilizer clicker, Spigarelli rest, and it's 20 pounds on the fingers. And I go through this a lot with video on purely technical form. But I also, if anyone's ever shot with me on a weekly basis, I strip off the sight, the stabilizer, and the clicker. This is my 20-pound light bow that I shoot in our traditional archery league. And I can also shoot this in my garden at 10 meters, bare bow. So having a light bow is kind of like a stretch band, but you can actually shoot with it. Don't expect your arrows to tune unless you've spent time on that. But shooting, if you have a blank bail or a close target, this is great for working on technique. So if you have one of those goals where you're trying to improve your bow shoulder or your follow through or something related like that, then the light bow is awesome. Okay, then you have your main bow. There's loads of things you can do with your main bow if you can't get to the range. And again, I keep mentioning SBTs, but we're going to go to that. But also, we're now starting to get into the range of shot trainers. And so the one that I use most, and the one that Coach Lee prefers everyone to use, is the Astra Archery Shot Trainer. If you've never seen this, Jake Kaminsky just posted a really good video on working at home and demonstrates how to use this. Essentially, this sleeve goes on, and there's an attachment on your elbow, really strong here. Then there is a piece of like luggage strap with a carabiner. This goes on the string as a loop. The carabiner then attaches to that part of the elbow. And now you have it set to where it's just about, the string is maybe about half an inch further than your hook. And now I can shoot my bow and my arm is going to catch the string. Couple of phases to this. You can shoot without an arrow, without a target, and you can practice your follow through. It also will tell you whether you've achieved holding. If you haven't, the bow's going to pull you forward and collapse you. This is a secret weapon that I think barebow archers should be doing all the time. It keeps you so honest. If you don't continue expanding through the shot, it just collapses you and pulls you forward with a vengeance. You have to be really careful if you're a compound shooter using this, because you can actually get injured pretty badly. So your coach should help you with that. The other phase is with an arrow, and you can then practice your clicker control. So you'd be at full draw, you'd expand, click, keep expanding, release, hold it for 5 seconds, which you should do on every shot trainer shot anyway. And then you're getting completely safe clicker control drills, form drills. Now you can also release that arrow if you've got a safe place to do it. The arrow will fall off the bow, it maybe go 3 yards if that. And you can also get a group if you're doing it the same way. I like taking a target. I can only get about 15 yards in my garden. I put a target up on a tree, I'll take the shot trainer out, and I'll go through the whole shot process, aiming and through the release follow through, and the arrows just dribble off. But you're now incorporating everything into your shot cycle. You can do that on light bow, and you can do that on main bow, where you can increase your strength, endurance, shot count, bow weight. So that's a really good training tool there. The other type of shot trainer, which is commonly used, is I think it's called the Ranger-Matic. This is the Form Master. This is a 28-pound stretch band attached to tape that goes, luggage strap, which goes, again, on your elbow. Same idea, this hooks onto the string, you shoot. Now, because this is a stretchy, you can keep moving, and that's the goal of this: is to keep moving, finish the shot. Where the Astra Archer is more of a hold, this is more of a flexibility kind of drill. This is also, if you're a push-pull archer, this is kind of reinforcing that motion that you'd be making as well. But I found this, whether you're shooting carousel or push-pull, I found this to be an interesting and useful tool. The one thing I have heard about it is, though, these tend to break. And so you need to make sure when you're using this that if that happens, the arrow isn't going to fly off and injure someone or cause some kind of damage. All right, so actually I forgot this stretch band. This is a stretch band I picked up in England. It's Win-Win actually makes something similar, but it allows you, rather than having the stretch band go around your fingers of your hook, you hold on to the ball and it gives you a different feel again. You can also hold the ball in your grip hand. I think this is a good Babo type stretch band because you can really feel the ball against your anchor point. So I quite like this one. I forgot to mention that. Other training tools we have what we mentioned last week. We have the OptiBrain and the NeuroSky. And so if your goal is to increase focus, increase mindfulness, really test out your mental program, then the NeuroSky for $110, if you can find one, is really great. OptiBrain is a bit more expensive. All right, so they're kind of tools that you can use for physical shooting and mental shooting. How do you get the feedback? So I like the premise that the quality of your training is really only as good as the feedback you're going to get. So you want rapid feedback and quality feedback. And you can get really inventive on the types of feedback. One types of training that I used to do to test my follow through would be to have a microphone stand behind me. And the goal was, when I had followed through, my elbow would hit the microphone stand. And that really helps get me feedback that have I completed my shot. So you can get inventive about stuff like that. But the common ones I like to use, the simple, cheap camera tripod. And there's this holder that you can type on it. It's from Jellyfish. And this was recommended to me by Nick, so I'm thankful for that. And you can just put your iPhone in it, twist it at different angles, different heights, and you can either record yourself using the Coach's Eye app, which is excellent because it lets you draw on freeze frame video, check alignments, and it also lets you scrub video very, very slowly. So it's a great app. Or you can put the BAM video delay. There's a bunch of video delay apps for iPhone. You can install them on here. And you can literally set this up to where it's just looking at you at whatever angle. Maybe it's you want to look at your loading. Maybe you want to look from behind to see how your follow through is. And you set it with maybe an 11-second delay and you do your shot and then you watch yourself back. So that's a really cool tool. I use that all the time. It helps keep the training interesting, which is something I forgot to mention early on. How you're training right now, to make it useful and motivating, it needs to be entertaining, fun, and engaging. If it's not, it's going to get boring. You're going to get less motivated. So anything you can do to make it interesting is going to really help you maintain that program. The next thing is a good old-fashioned microphone stand. And I've got this thing on it called the iClip. Now, this is built for musicians because your iPad slots in here and you can have your music here or your lyrics. But I use it for iPad video delay. And it just works out great. You get a much bigger camera, you get a much bigger playback, and you can set it to any height. This is a super tool. If you really want to get fancy, and this is going to take a little bit more investment, you can set up a projector. So if you have a small range at home, even if it's 2 or 3 meters with a bail, you can set up a camera and project your image onto the blank bail. And I put up those big 3M white pieces of paper, and you can see yourself in real time rather than video delay. I like doing this. I like putting a camera on my clicker, and I can see exactly where the arrow is to the tip while I'm going through the shot cycle. That's a good training tool in short bursts because it can get a little bit distracting. But if you can get a camera above you, looking down and projected on the wall, then that's like one of the ultimate setups because you can really see your alignment in real time and relate how it feels through the body once you've gone into transfer and what you'll follow through. I've recently managed to set this up at home with I've got a bike stand and a selfie stick. So I can extend the selfie stick with my iPhone camera attached and I can get it to the top of the ceiling looking down. And then there's an application for Mac and Windows called Reflector, and you can screen mirror your iPhone to your Mac or your Windows. So I have my Windows system there. I have the camera above me, and I can now put it on video delay or take videos. So I'll do a shot, and I'm looking for alignment, and I'm looking for where my hook looks, and I'm looking for what my follow through looks like, and then I get it replayed straight back at me on the Mac a few seconds later because obviously looking up this can give you a neck ache and you're not going to be able to see it. So that's a really good setup too. So any of those video delays are going to be helpful in getting your feedback, improving the quality of your training, keeping things more fun, keeping things more interesting. And I'd highly encourage everyone to do that. Now, if your training goal is endurance or strength, then we can go on to the SPTs, specific physical training, which is something Coach Lee came up with. He has 3. The first one you can do with stretch band, light bow, or main bow. It depends on where you are in terms of physical conditioning and what your goal is going to be. But the power SPT would be to come up to set up, load, anchor, transfer, and then come back down to setup, set, load, anchor, transfer, and then come back to setup. And you do those kind of reps. And you do those depending on your load. I like to do those in groups of 5 or 10. And then rest for double the amount of time it took you. So you get a full amount of rest. So very quickly, you can get 50 or 60 high quality, difficult shots in as long as you're maintaining your form. Those are very tiring very quickly. And oftentimes your bow arm will start dropping. But if you're building bow strength, it's a fantastic way of doing it. The flexibility SPT is where you would come up to transfer, you would expand, clicker would go off, and you keep expanding as long as you possibly can, and then you let down. And that is really to try and increase your range of motion and to really get the feel of maintaining back tension way past the clicker so you can finish the shot. Again, they're fatiguing, but a great way to build up strength. And then lastly is the holding SPT, where you'll come up to full draw, anchor, transfer, get inside the bow, brace through the body, and hold it there for maybe 30 seconds or whatever you can. 10 seconds is fine if you're starting off. Anything that you can do that you're measuring, because you'll gradually see it improve. So if you did 30 reps of 5-second holds 1 week and you took adequate recovery, next week you'd probably find you could do 8-second holds. And so write that down, that's your training goal. So SPTs are pretty much the only way to really increase your bow strength. Coach Lee drilled this to us when we were on our training course. You can do weight training and fitness work and push-ups and everything for overall conditioning, and that's good, and you want to do that. But in terms of making you strong for your bow, the only thing you can really do is shoot your bow, because there's so many parts of your body and so many muscles involved, all together working in unison. It's very difficult to isolate and train those. So when you think about it, doing bicep curls is good, but is it going to make you any stronger on the bow? Doing push-ups is good, but it's hitting a different set of muscle group. And those muscle groups aren't engaged on their own when you're shooting. They're engaged, they're working in harmony with your core and a host of other things going on here. So conditioning right now is a good thing to do at training at home. Again, measure it. What are you trying to do? What's your goal? What's your objective? What's your training plan? And keep working towards that. So that was a lot of content. That was a load of stuff I just threw at you right now. So Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone want to go over anything? Um, I'll throw this open now because we've had our 30 minutes. So let's see. While we're waiting, if anyone pings a question, oh, we've had loads of stuff, links and stuff like that. Sorry, I'm not keeping up. Okay, excellent. Yeah, when you're adding SPTs, endurance stuff, you want to make sure you know what your baseline is first. And so don't suddenly go, someone's saying, okay. Don't suddenly go blasting into it to see how much I can do and then expect the next day to do it again. What you'd want to do if you're going after endurance or strength is find your baseline. So I learned this from a really good physio in town, and it's a great rule of thumb. So let's say I'm going to do main bow holding drills. I'm going to get a rest day, so I'm fresh. I'm going to go into the range with my main bow, and I'm going to have an interval timer. There's a little app on the phone, and I'm going to set up the intervals I want to shoot, and it's going to be little buzzes. So it's going to be a bell when I start, a bell when I let down, and a bell after my rest cycle. And that means you're doing the same thing over and over and over when, so that you're not just guessing how long should I rest for, how long should I hold for. This is going to be a rigid, disciplined, constant in your training. And if without the constant, you can't compare your progression. So I would do my holding drills to my interval timer, and I would do that until my form broke down, and I would be counting the number of shots until I really can't do it anymore, and that's my max. So let's say I did that 50 times. Then the next day you rest, make sure you've recovered, and then for 5 days you train at 80% of that capacity. Okay, so 80% you're not getting to your max. That's going to mean you're not pushing it, you're not needing extra time to recover, and your body will get stronger if you're training to 80% of max. So you do that, and then you have your recovery day, or maybe you need 2 recovery days, and then you retest using the interval trainer again. And so you keep going until you hit your max. So you'll find that your max will have increased. And then you train again at 80% of your max. And you keep doing that. And over a 3 or 4 week cycle, you can increase your max quite a lot without putting your body at risk for overtraining or injury. So that's a really good technique. That works pretty much whether you're doing weight training, archery, running, any kind of strength or load-based training where you're looking for performance gains by breaking your body down, essentially. Let's just get left comments. Okay, so does anyone else have a comment or go through anything that I've covered? Yeah, Jessica says we shared this information. It's been a long time assimilating this stuff. It's out there, bits and pieces. I've gathered a lot of it myself because I've had issues with injuries in the past where I haven't trained well. I've had incorrect advice. And it's through these kind of experiences, if you can wrap them up in a digestible, repeatable format and then share them with people so that they don't have to go through that same pain or same learning curve, ultimately that's what we're here for as coaches and as clubs, is to help people learn this stuff quicker and not make the same mistakes. So I'll wrap this up now then. This has been really fun. If you need any clarification, anything I've talked about, you can ping me directly. Happy to go through this. I'm also, if you need help performance, goal setting or measuring, I'm happy to just help you with that. We've got loads of times on our hands, and I'll do that for any of our members or anyone that needs help. All right, well, thanks everyone. Keep safe. I hope this was useful. Post whatever you're doing if you find this useful, or you have suggestions or feedback of what I could have done differently or what you'd want to see differently. We'll always take that. And if you start doing this stuff, post us. Let's hear about your successes. That would be really cool. All right. Thanks, everyone. You take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.